All right. This is my first time doing this panel, so just want to get my notes out. All right, can everybody hear me? We're okay without a mic? Yeah? It's not too loud anymore. I'm gonna try, I like standing up. I'm gonna try not to block this. If I block this, just someone tell me. You tell me. Yes, Lazar and you. Okay. So just kind of ignore this for now. This is for a point later. I'm going to talk about reference sheets. But welcome to my panel about how to commission a fursuit. I'm Feathers Okapi, and I am the owner of Kemonokapi, and I've been making fursuits professionally since 2018. It's my full-time job, along with my partner Cinder, who couldn't make it. But as someone who has made fursuits for people who have commissioned me and commissioned others, adoptable fursuits, made trades, I feel like I have enough knowledge now to share my experience and just my own opinions about the best way to go about commissioning a suit from someone. Sorry, I'm out of breath because I ran up to my room to get my notes. So, I know that like most people don't really talk about like the nitty-gritty details because it's more than just have a reference sheet and give it to
Details are important. Details are important. Please
Details
cover
are
them.
important, yeah. So I do want to talk about researching your maker an appropriate amount because you should really know what you're going to be paying, you know, $3,000 to $8,000 on or however much you want to spend. And I noticed that a lot of folks online who reviewed fursuits on YouTube or in Twitter threads haven't really realized what they're going to get. Like they don't know what they're paying for exactly. And it helps to know how a suit is made and how your maker makes the suit and what they provide before you commission them. And a lot of people, I think, don't do that. It's very much, wow, I love how that suit looks on the outside. Here's my reference sheet, here's my money, give me the result. And for some people, that's fine. You don't care what you get necessarily as long as visually it looks great and it looks like what you want to get. But for some people, it can be a little bit more involved. Maybe you require certain features. Maybe you assume that all suit heads have fans in them. Maybe you need a fan and you don't know that you need a fan yet. Maybe you want lining in your suit. Maybe you don't because you don't like to have the extra layer. You should know what the maker that you like does in advance. Because some makers will not compromise. If they prefer to do lining, they might not be willing to not do that for you. So you need to know before you jump in and pay, and then you say, "Hey, wait, I don't want that." You know, that kind of sets a maker behind. So we're also going to talk about how to avoid irresponsible makers, how to avoid scams, where you should be looking for makers, and the best places to find reliable makers, because there are so many now. When I was younger, there were only like a handful of makers that people knew by name, and a lot of them are still around, like Made For You. But now there are literally hundreds and hundreds of makers all over the world, at all different price points, all different styles, all different qualities. So it's hard to know where to begin, especially if you're not necessarily on social media seeing these makers pumping out suits every week. So that's also something we're going to talk about. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Oh yeah, and then I guess I'll talk about how suit making has changed and what expectations have become nowadays. Because back when I was younger, it was very different. Suits were less finished, less professional looking. It was very much a home craft type of deal. And some makers still operate that way. Like Beast Cub, for example. She's very creative. She makes wearable works of art. She's definitely not the kind of person who goes in and has detailed, intricate finishing on the inside of the suit. The inside doesn't necessarily matter. But for some folks, it will matter and they want that finish. In which case, Beast Cub wouldn't be a good option for you. So it's really important to look into these things before you get your heart set on commissioning someone and then find out that they're not exactly what you actually wanted. So I'm going to ask a few questions to kind of get a feel for the general knowledge in the room. So first of all, who here has not commissioned a fursuit and wants to? You can put your hand up. Yeah, a lot of people. As expected because of the panel name. So who here has commissioned a fursuit already and has had a negative experience?
Multiple.
A lot of people, yeah, multiple. I find that it happens repeatedly for a lot of folks too. I see a lot of people on Twitter talking about how they commissioned someone, they didn't follow through, and then they commissioned someone new, and they didn't follow through, or they did and it wasn't the quality they were looking for or that they were promised. So I will touch on that a bit. And then I'll ask a bit about, just to get some knowledge about what people know is included in a suit or what might not be included. So who here, put your hand up if you know what bias tape is. Quite a few people don't know what that is. Put your hand up if you know what lining is.
Define lining.
Exactly. So different things mean different things to different people. Some people think that lining is the bias tape that goes around the raw edge of fur on like a pair of paws to hide the raw edge. And that gets confused a lot. And I just kind of want to talk about that a little bit because it ties into the expectations of what you're looking for and what you deem to be acceptable in a work of art that you are paying a large amount of money for. And let's see. I have one more question. Where is it? Here we go. So you can also put your hand up if you do not know the difference between having a foam, a resin, or a 3D printed head base. Do you know the difference? If you don't know the difference between wearability of these three different things, you can put your hand up if you're not quite sure what the differences are. Pros and cons,
I was about to say pros and cons of each of those are very important to know because each person has a different preference.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people don't care what their head is made of. Others don't know what the difference is going to be, or they've never worn a foam head and they don't know that maybe they like a resin head better. Maybe they'll like a foam head better. It's all about figuring out exactly what you want and what you're willing to spend money on. So first we're going to talk about how to choose a maker. For a lot of people, I think it's more common that you would already have a character, whether it be your persona or a character that you just have. And you'll have a character and you'll be looking for someone to commission of that character. I kind of do it the other way around when I want to commission somebody. I'll choose a maker first whose style that I like, and then I will create a character that is already in the style that artist makes it suited, and I will commission them for that character. I find that works better for me because I'm going in knowing that I'm creating this character with a fursuit in mind already. So I can design it in such a way that it's not going to drive the maker crazy, it's not going to have colors that are impossible to find, or parts that are not going to necessarily work when translated into 3D.
Can you talk a little bit more about both of those, about choosing a maker and creating a fursona, but also what if you have a fursona and you're trying to find a maker for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And also, just like this person here, if you have questions as I'm talking, just go for it. Put your hand up if you think I'm going to miss something. Don't wait till the end because you might lose the question in your head. But we will have a Q&A at the end too. So if you already have your character and you're looking for, you want to start looking for a maker, you want to change your character so that it is fursuit safe. You will have to come to some kind of compromise if your character is a color of fur that does not exist. And I'll talk about that more because I think that people should be ordering their own swatches from fabric providers, and you should figure out what colors you want your suit to be before you commission your artist. Because I have had people apply and they know exactly which fur they want and where it's from, and I want to accept that one before anyone else because I have less work to do. Someone already knows exactly what they're going to get. They're not going to fight me on the color. They're not going to say, hey, I found this weird obscure fur on like Etsy, can I have that? And they don't know what the quality is actually like. And quality varies wildly across furs. And most of the time, your fursuit maker is going to know what's best for you. Sometimes, if they're less experienced, they might not. And you should always make a suggestion if you have one. Worst case is that your maker says, no, I'm not going to do that. And my clients have made suggestions to me that have worked out great. Construction suggestions and things like that, if they're experienced with cosplay or other things like that. Sometimes they have knowledge that I don't have yet, so you never know. But it's always good to have in mind the buildability, the feasibility of your character becoming a fursuit. if you have gigantic wings, maybe you want to make a version of your character that has smaller wings that are more manageable. Because if you send in a reference with a character with huge wings, maybe you'll get a quote back for wings that are that big, and you will not want to pay that much. Or it'll be impossible. So that's really important to think about. If you already have a character in mind, you want to simplify it depending on the maker that you choose. Some makers are more experienced at complicated designs, so you might not have to, but it all kind of ties together.
So a complicated design, I'm assuming, affects price?
Yes, if your design has 80 spots, you will pay for 80 spots. So maybe you want to make that 10 spots instead and change it up a bit. So I'll continue on with choosing a maker. The most important thing is research, obviously. And typically you do get what you pay for. I like to compare it to shopping for tattoo artists. Yep.
Good question. I don't
Sure.
know if this is really related to anything. This is just a general Fursuit question.
Yep.
Okay, so do you know how Fursuit has like, let's just say, just a typical dog character.
Yep.
But his hair is really big. Like,
Mhm.
it's not just at the top, but it's also like around the sides, like the character on the right there. Is that impossible? Is that easy to create, or is that kind of difficult? Or just
It's going to depend entirely on the artist that you choose. I love doing hair like that, and I love making fursuit hair. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's one of the things I get the most compliments on. But other makers will not touch characters that have hair with a 10-foot pole. So it's going to come down to your maker and whether they will agree to attempt making that kind of hairstyle or not, or if they have a method already. And some makers will use wigs. Some will use something called Kemonokapi, which is like a wefting thread where they'll like weft the entire wig themselves onto your fursuit head. So really it's going to depend on who you use to make it. There are some makers that do like amazing, like big poofy hair, like realistic looking hair. I think it's LLM Costumes that does like huge like wefted wigs, and the hair looks great. If you wanted to look them up, but really it's going to come down to your maker and what they are comfortable with doing. Yeah, you could always have like multiple versions of the character as well. One with the hair, one without it, one with a different hairstyle. And you can send like all of those versions into your maker. And if you're okay with getting one without hair or one with a different hairstyle, something like that, that could be a possibility too. All right, so what I was saying is like you typically get what you pay for. I compare it to shopping for a tattoo artist, where if you decide that your budget is only $60, you're going to get what you pay for. Whereas if you are searching for an artist instead of a budget, and you decide I won't work from that artist, no matter how much it costs, and you save up towards that goal to get what you want, you will get that much better of a product. It's most often the case unless your maker is way undercharging themselves. So it's up to you if you want to have a lower budget or give yourself time to have a higher budget in the future, because you don't need your fursuit right now. You can wait, it's not necessary to have one. It's very exciting to get one, but it's up to you if you want to have one fursuit and upgrade later, get a new fursuit, get a version 3, get a version 4, etc. Find a new maker, get a new suit, or some people just have that one and done, where this is the only time you're going to get to commission a suit. So you kind of have to gauge that yourself. And let's see, wait times and public queues is also important in choosing a maker. If your maker does not have a public listed queue that shows you all of the people in line waiting for a suit, I would not recommend commissioning them. Oh, bye.
Laptop probably.
Oh,
Laptop went to sleep.
you get it. So if there is no public queue and you have no way to know how many people are in front of you in line before you pay, I wouldn't suggest commissioning that maker. A queue should always be public. It should always be public knowledge how many people are waiting in line. They should always have like a very rough estimate of how long it takes them to complete a suit. Because there are some makers who don't have public queues and you don't know how long you're going to wait. Some of them won't show you their queue until you pay. And you have to decide if that maker is putting out work still consistently and you don't know how long you're going to wait, you have to decide for yourself if you're okay with waiting an indeterminate amount of time. Some people are okay with just waiting until their maker gets around to it. I personally am not. I would like to have my suit within a year of paying for it. So that's really up to you. There are makers who put out work relatively consistently every month, and they just don't have a public queue anywhere. You don't know how long it'll take to get it, but if you really, really want it and you're okay with it and you come to terms with it, then by all means go for it.
And would you also talk about the reliability of makers in predicting timelines?
Yes. So I think that most makers who are very professional about their business have the know-how to predict how long it will take them to make a suit in their queue. My average is about one suit every month, a month and a half. I'll do 2 suits maybe. So that's like a very rough estimate. Sometimes I'll get a more complicated project and it'll take longer, same with any other maker. But if they can't give you like a very rough estimate, or at least tell you how long it takes them to complete one suit, then it might be a little bit dodgy there. You just want to check their social media, check their website, see if they're consistently putting out work. If they're not consistently putting out work, if their last suit was posted online 5 months ago, maybe not the best route to go.
Yeah, there are some makers who make great suits, but cannot predict their time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you said you're going to talk about undercharging.
Yeah.
There are also ones who can't figure out how long it's going to take them to make things. A couple of the best fursuit makers I know are like that. When you commission them, you do not know if you're going to get your suit in 6 months or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get your suit. It's going to be great, but you have no idea how long it's going to take.
Yeah. So I guess I'll continue talking about doing research related to that. If you want to be sure that your artist hasn't been involved in anything suspicious online, I recommend typing in the name of the maker that you're interested in and then add the word beware to the end on Google. And there's a lot of things called artist bewares where people will post their negative experiences that they've had. So you can go in and read the details. Usually you're required to have proof to be able to post that. Maybe you had like an argument over a feature of the suit, or maybe it was delayed too long, maybe they didn't receive certain parts, which did happen to my friend Lazar in here. She commissioned feet that she never received, and she got the head but no feet, and she got paws but no feet. I don't know. So take a look for some bewares about your artist. Do your research there, it's really important. People commission artists all the time without knowing that they have prior instances of negative goings on. Sometimes they'll even change their business name, and searching for a beware, they'll often have all of the different business names listed in their posts that they post about to keep others, to keep others aware about what's going on. So it can be a little dangerous out there, but I don't want to discourage anyone from commissioning a suit. It's just that research is really important. Also, I think the most important thing is to talk to an owner of a suit from the maker that you want to commission. Speak with someone about how long they waited, what wearing their suit is like, is it comfortable, was the maker easy to work with, did they get updates frequently, things like that. You really want to put that effort in to try and find someone. Most of us are happy to talk about our suits, even talking about the price, because you might wonder, roughly, oh, your character has 100 spots, like how much did you end up having to pay for those 100 spots? It's not, I don't think it should be taboo to ask, because you really never know. Makers charge different amounts across the board. I charge $30 per spot because I don't like to do spots, but other makers charge much less, or they really love doing complicated designs, and as a result, they might not charge you as much as somebody else. I think they might be undercharging if they're less than $30, but everyone kind of does their own thing. There's no regulations for fursuit pricing. So it's all about what you want and what the maker is willing to do.
And if you can, try to find multiple suits from the same maker, especially somebody who's not a best friend of that maker.
Yeah, talking to a friend of the maker might give you a different result than someone who isn't. Because very rarely some makers might give preference to their friends or put extra effort into their friends' suits. It can happen, you never know. But as long as you are happy with the body of work that suit maker does, then I think you can't really go wrong. So the other thing is to find out what features are included in the suit and if your maker offers features that you want. So figure out what your must-haves are and what you don't necessarily need. For me, personally, I don't care what the suit looks like on the inside or how wearable it is, as long as it looks cute on the outside. And not everyone has that opinion, not everyone has that kind of tolerance. I'm okay with wearing a suit for 15 minutes and then having to take it off and rest. Others, you want to have your suit on for 2 hours before you have to take a break. So the wearability of a suit will affect that. Whether your suit has a fan and maybe you have lower or higher heat tolerance, find out if your maker can put a fan in your suit, or if your suit will be editable so that you might want to put a fan in yourself. Always talk to them, figure it out. Some makers add pockets to their suits. Maybe you need to have your phone with you at all times. Find out if your maker will put a hidden pocket inside your suit. Things like that. Maybe you have a bad back, but your character has wings. You know, you really gotta ask them. You gotta ask questions. Makers are usually always happy to answer emails about that kind of thing if they don't have it on their website. Always check the website first. I list all the features that I offer and that I don't on my own website. A lot of makers do. And I don't really like getting emails with questions that are all answered on my website already, because I'll just direct them to the website. So take a look there first. And then if there's something that's really important to you, then send your maker an email. You know, be kind about it, be formal about it. Don't just like send them a message on Twitter like, hey, do you do this? You know, tell them that you're interested in a commission opening, but this feature is important to you. I really need a fan, my heat tolerance is low, are you a good fit for me? Will my character be a good fit for you? That kind of thing. Like I said, I don't care what the suit looks like on the inside, but you might. I don't care if it's lined, you might. You might hate the feel of foam against your face. Some makers don't line their heads. So if you have like sensory issues perhaps, figure out what you're sensitive to. Try on fursuits that belong to your friends. Some panels even have fursuits for you there to try on, like some performance panels and stuff like that. So you really gotta put in the research there. Don't just find someone and throw money at them and hope that you can wear it. Because I do see a lot of suits, especially in the style of suit that I make, which is kimono, which has very bad ventilation and some other issues that are not really prevalent in Western suits. And I see that folks buy these suits all the time from Japan and Korea, China, and then I see them up on the dealer's den a week later because they can't function in them, they can't wear them, they can't tolerate it. So I really encourage people to try before you buy, if you can.
How does what you're going to do in the suit or your style of fursuiting matter?
Well,
Dancing versus public things.
yeah.
Versus...
So I have to be very low energy in the suits that are like mine because the poor ventilation. It's very hot. It's very heavy. If you are looking for a suit that you can dance in, if you really want a rough house in your suit, then you need to talk to your maker about it. Because some makers are not willing to have that kind of liability where they promise you that so and such will not rip if you do this. Yes, you can do the splits in your suit. No, you can't do the splits in your suit. I know that there is one parkour artist who got their suit specially designed by someone so that they could have like maximum flexibility when they're jumping around. So, if you have like a unique interest like that you want to do in your suit, that's also important to mention to your maker, just in case they are able to make adjustments for you or if they can tell you that they're not going to be a good fit for you. So I'll talk a little bit about pricing, because that's always like a hot topic, and prices are going up and up and up and up lately. And a lot of it does come from material prices just rising, but in general, fursuit makers are not paid a living wage. In the end, if they break it down into the hours that they worked, it's probably not going to be minimum wage in most cases. So I did want to talk about what I guess I would consider to be the higher end at the moment, which is around $8,000 for a full suit. So for us, up in Canada, we have different taxes, we have different rules and things like that. So for example, if someone were to pay $8,000 for a suit from us, 25% of that immediately has to go set aside for taxes. We have to pay taxes on that amount that comes in. And then with our customs fees and your shipping fees, it's about $700, give or take, for materials. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes it can be less. Now we're left with $5,300. Now we have $200 or $300 for extras like masking tape, plastic wrap, thread, things that we use around the house, sewing machine maintenance, 3D printer maintenance, 3D printer filament, things like that. So that takes it down to around $5,000. And now we are 2 people, so I divide that in half. So now it's $2,550 per person. And now we pay rent, now we pay our bills. We have higher electricity bills because we're running machinery all the time. We're running sewing machines, 3D printers, big fancy printers, PCs, whatever you got. And then in the case of the US, of course, fursuit makers do not have medical coverage. We are self-employed, so if you have to go to the doctor, you have to pay out of pocket. We don't have any kind of coverage like that. Up in Canada we do, so it's a bit different. But most makers are in America that you would be familiar with. And then we use a lot of the money to upgrade our maker methods. So if you want to upgrade to resin casting, if you want to upgrade your sewing machine, you want to get into embroidery, you want to improve the quality of your suits for your customers, that comes out of the money that you have left. So a lot of it will go immediately back into improving your product or providing your clients with freebies. I give out lanyards, I give out drawstring bags, I give out all kinds of things, necklace bands, anything to make the life of the client a bit easier when they get their new suit. So that doesn't leave a lot left. I think it averages out to about $15 an hour, the minimum wage for an $8,000 fursuit, assuming we make 1 per month. So it kind of puts it into perspective, and then at the end of the year, we do have to pay taxes, of course. So I think that a lot of artists are probably not making minimum wage at the rate, depending on where they live. And of course, I live in one of the highest cost of living cities in North America. So we have that on top as well. So the location of your maker will also change how much they have to charge. So these are all important things to keep in mind when you go onto a website and see a price that to you might seem astronomical or impossible to reach. If your maker doesn't offer a payment plan and you feel like you can't reach that amount, make your own payment plan. Nothing is stopping you from making a savings account and putting $200 in every month. I think that's a much better way to go about it than trying to come up with a way to pay your maker that much every month. Because I find that in a lot of cases, the folks who need the long-term payment plans are often the most shaky, and they'll miss a month here, they'll miss a month there, and then it becomes hard for me to predict my schedule. So it might cause me to fall behind if someone misses a payment, and now 3 people finish all of their payment plans in a row, and my queue gets longer as a result, so the wait time extends. If a maker doesn't offer payment plans, it's easier for them to predict how long it's going to take them to make a suit and to get to your suit. And I do see people complain a lot about payment plans not being available, but from the perspective of a maker, it can be very difficult for us to manage that with unreliable customers. And we never know when someone is going to have a problem pop up. So for us, it's easier to accept 1 payment or 2 payments or a short-term payment plan. So in cases like that, start setting aside money on your own. Make your own payment plan. Have a savings account where you put just $20 in like every week or something like that, whatever you can manage. You don't need your suit right now. You can wait a few years if you must. Let's see. Another important thing that's related to payment plans is to check the terms of service of your maker before you commission them. I have great, amazing clients, but I know that a lot of them never read the terms of service before commissioning me. Some of them will even say, oh, I didn't even think to read that. I love the work, everything's great, I have no problems, but I didn't read your terms of service. And if you read my terms of service, you'll know that I used to give refunds in emergencies and I no longer do because I've had some issues there. I am pretty consistent and reliable, so in turn, I feel that I am okay to say that I don't give refunds because you'll get your suit from me in 6 months, that kind of thing. So check to see if your maker allows you to make modifications. If you get your suit, will that void the warranty? Some makers won't repair your suit for you if you've made alterations because they don't know if your alteration will have made it harder for them to work on the suit or change things that they can't fix, things like that. Check if you're underage or if you know someone who's underage who wants to commission someone through you. Make sure that that maker allows underage folks to commission them. Most often the case is no, because we can't enter contracts with minors legally, so if they do a chargeback, we have no legal ground to stand on. And I personally don't accept commissions from anyone under 18. And I don't accept commissions from parents that are standing in the place of their children, because I've had negative experiences with that. Some parents don't understand the process of commissioning, that you pay and then you wait and then you get the item at the end. So in the end, it's just become a lot simpler for me to streamline it and not accept those kinds of commissions. So if you're in a situation like that, or you know someone in that kind of situation, check the terms of service. If it's not on your maker's website, email them and ask them, do you need terms of service? Where can I read your refund policy? Where can I read your deposit policy? Things like that. All very important. A good place to start looking for a maker before you look for all of this information, there's a website that's kind of new called Get Fursuit. It's a big, long list of all of the current active makers. It's going to be active makers because we have to submit ourselves to the website and provide all of our information. It will list the maker, whether or not they're open, features they offer, the species they do, the style they make work in. And it does this cool thing where it will use your website that we submit, and it will automatically update when we're closed or open based on the text that we present on our website. So it's a good place to start looking. Are you going to find it? Wow, here it is. Lazarus with big brain. And Get Fursuit works in tandem with Fursuit Reviews, which of course is a place where you can read Fursuit reviews. Good, bad, or neutral. You can read about plenty of makers and very detailed experiences about what people have gone through when they've commissioned makers. Most of them are positive, so that's a good thing. You can see what the insides of suits look like. You can read about the process, how long it took, what the price range was that people paid. I think it's a pretty invaluable resource. Not every maker is on there, of course, but a good chunk are, and it's a great place to start looking. There's one for me, look. That one's me. That one's me too, and that one's also me. You searched me, I'm stupid. Okay.
Right, we should put more up.
We should.
We have far more satisfied customers.
Well, I think you have to have like a minimum of 8 hours wear time before you can review it. So not everyone is allowed to put it up right away, but.
Is this one getfursuit.com?
I think it's
Like Fursuit, but it's .it.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
Get
like Get
Fursuit-
Fursuit, but
Fursuit.it,
the Fursuit is
yes.
.it. Yeah. All right, so now we're going to use the reference sheet if you want to go back to that. CoreWorks did an entire panel about reference sheets, so really this could all just be its own thing, but I don't have time to do 5 panels in a weekend. So I'm going to talk a little bit about designing your character, which I already did, and creating an appropriate Fursuit reference sheet. So you should create a reference sheet for your character in the style of the fursuit that you want to commission. You should not be using the same reference that you give to artists to draw commissions. You should have a fursuit reference that is separate, specifically for commissioning a fursuit. We can tell when you have one and when you don't. So a good example would be, I get a lot of references of toony looking characters, and they want me to adapt them into my fursuit style. And I don't like to do that because it essentially means redesigning a character for the client. So I would rather choose someone who already has art in the style that they want. It's a lot easier to work with, and I'll just naturally gravitate towards those because it's easier for me to visualize the finished product and whether or not I can do it justice. Like I said earlier, cross-reference available fur colors when you're designing your fursuit reference. We get our fur mostly from a website called Howl Fabrics. Howl as in, a howling wolf. It's run by a fursuit maker. And we also use Big Z Fabrics. You can order samples from them. It's like $1. And if you just go through and look at all the furs they have available, you can order all the samples and you can know exactly what furs you're going to have on your suit and what you prefer, whether you like long fur, short fur, etc. And you'll be able to say, hey, fursuit maker, I've already chosen all of my furs. Here they are, and here's where you can get them. And I will bow down to you, and I will say thank you over and over again. Yeah.
A quick comment. If you're thinking commissioning your fursuit and you go like, oh gee, I don't want to know if I want to pay $1 for samples, you should buy 20 or 30 samples at $1. You're about to spend thousands of dollars on a fursuit. Go get some samples, figure out what furs you like, and as this maker says, it is the best thing you can do for you to be comfortable with the colors and the maker to be able to more quickly find the right fur for yours.
Yeah, they also sell swatch books of all
They
of the
do?
colors together. I think they're usually $30 or so. 50 to
Exactly.
30. So if you just want all the colors, just get all the colors. it's worth the extra money if you're getting something that costs thousands of dollars. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay, so now I'll talk especially about the reference. Oh yeah, here, websites. Thank you, Lazar. I think people are yeah, visual is good. So now I'll talk about the reference sheets. Something that Soupy talked about in his panel that he did was that good art does not necessarily mean a good reference. I get illustrations submitted to me all the time, and I don't, it's difficult to work with something like this. The art is very nice, the character is very cute, but I can't see the paw pads clearly. I can't see what the back of the character looks like. I can't see if there's any markings on the back of the head. I get a lot of just front-facing illustrations, and those don't really work. Some people will write the description of what they want. Don't do that. Have a visual with everything you want included. You can go to the next one. So this is my character, Samyaza, the dragon of some kind, I don't know. But this is a reference that I would use in commissioning artwork. It is shaded, so you can see what the shadow colors look like for an illustration. It's got, you know, what he is vaguely. I say he, but it doesn't have a gender. I don't know, it's a thing. But I would change this if I were to commission a fursuit, which I did design this character specifically to commission as a suit from a specific artist. You can go to the next one. So this is what I would submit as a reference to a fursuit maker. It has a visual of the bottom of the feet, so the maker knows that I want paw pads on the bottom. You can see the front and the back of the hands. You can see that there's paw pads there. You can see that there's some marking on the back of the ear. There's a streak in the hair. There's no shading, so there's no confusion about different shades of gray, different tones. The only thing that I left shaded was the gold, because I would want the gold to be made of a reflective gold material. And I would specify that and provide an image of what I'm talking about. I would send them an image of gold vinyl and say, can you do this? If not, I'm okay with yellow minky. So I would make a note of that. And perhaps even do an alternative reference where the gold is just plain yellow, so that the maker can choose what works best for them. Very important also is the inside of the mouth. I have to ask constantly what the tongue looks like in characters that are submitted to me, whether or not they have teeth. If the inside of the mouth is, if they don't want it to be black, is it a different color? Sometimes you know in your head what you want, but you don't think when you look at your reference sheet that it should be there. Have a view of the inside of the mouth if you want a suit with an open mouth. It helps a lot, because then we can just go ahead and make it, instead of having to ask you, do you want teeth? What kind of teeth do you want? What color is your tongue? What shape is the tongue? Does it have a forked tongue? I've had clients change on the fly, like, oh, now that you mention it, can you do a forked tongue for my character? Try and think about all of that as you're creating your fursuit reference, or as you commission someone for a fursuit reference. I've also had instances where maybe the back of one hand is invisible, but the back of another hand is. And I had one where the back of one hand had a crescent moon on it, and the back of the other hand wasn't visible. So we had to ask, is it symmetrical, or are the moons facing the same direction? And the client, who's been great, by the way, said, oh, I've never thought of that before. So think about that kind of thing. Check across the illustrations that you've commissioned if you have any. Are there inconsistencies with artists where they didn't see a color or something like that? Because I've had that happen as well, where they'll send me a reference with multiple views, but the markings will be different in different views because the artist was confused about that kind of thing, and they didn't ask the person who commissioned them. So I've had that happen a couple times where the client has said, oh, I never thought about that, or oh, let's do this, or you do what's best. So try to think about that, because it's a lot to say, just do what's best, and then I do and you don't like it, so I don't want to risk that kind of thing. The next one, here's another example of that kind of thing. This is my character Versailles. I don't know what it is, but look at it, it's cute, right? So this is what I would send in that's got shading, so that in an illustration they know what color the shading is. It's tinted slightly green because I wanted to always have kind of a greenish tone. All it's got is the name. The gender and species doesn't matter because it's not anything specific. List your species, by the way, if you want it to look like your species. If you don't, and we have to guess, maybe it won't look like your species. I have the colors down here. It's very easy to look at and say, that's what this is supposed to look like. And then you go to the next one, and I would just submit it with no shading. if I was going to get a fursuit, which I have. I've gotten a quote for it before in the past, and that's exactly what it looks like. You can see that the marking is only on one hand, the back and front of both hands are visible. You can see that the hand has no paw pads, and it's safe to assume that the feet in turn will also have no paw pads. I haven't visualized it at all, so I would expect to submit this and get a quote for exactly what I'm seeing. So make sure the bottoms of your feet are visible, or your maker might just assume that there are no paw pads, or if for some reason your hands have paw pads but your feet don't, your maker's not going to know that. They'll probably assume that it does have that, or if they're different colors or something like that. Just keep that in mind, that it's easier to have a straight-on visual than just the little hint of a paw pad that we can kind of barely see, but we have to squint and look really close. Then we have to ask you, and that can delay it a little bit, especially if you're not online 24/7 to answer questions that we have. Let's see. And I guess lastly, in terms of design, to be frank about it, some designs of some characters are just not appealing to makers. A lot of us, some of us prefer to make the most simple designs. We don't care what the colors are. Some of us have preference to colors that we want to use because your suit will be out representing the maker. Most artists pick and choose which designs they want to make. And if you get one maker that just will not accept your design no matter how many times you submit it, maybe try to go find another option. When you're looking for makers, have a first and a second and a third option, have different preferences. Maybe have even another character that you might be willing to have made instead. Talk a lot about that. I have so many things to talk about. Next is applying for your suit. I've already talked about it a little bit. To check the queue, figure out how many commissions your maker will accept when they open, how often they open, have multiple options. If your maker uses a quote system, some will open for quotes and then open separately for commissions, and you need to have a quote already to apply. It's just important to figure out how your maker operates. Let's see, if you don't agree with the price, which happens a lot, you can politely decline. You don't have to say, oh, that's too much. You can say, I don't have the money at this time, but thank you for giving me a quote. Be kind about it. It puts us off a little bit, and makers talk to each other, and we know who's a little tough to work with. We know who's a little bit annoying to speak to. Just be polite, and a lot of times we'll be more willing to work with you in the future. There are sometimes people that I'll go back to accept their commissions because I really like their character design, but I didn't quite have room this time on my queue. If we see a design we like, we'll probably want to make it. And if you're kind, we'll probably want to make it. Yeah, so it says, let's see, my notes here. I'm tired. Yeah, I guess it's important to mention, don't fantasize about options and getting a fursuit if you have no intention to follow through. We do get applications, and other makers get applications where they're just window shopping, but they don't really tell us that they're window shopping. They're excited at the prospect of getting a suit, but they don't necessarily have the funds to get it yet. Try not to be that person. It's very exciting to apply for a suit, but wait until you have the money to pay for it. Wait until you have extra money to pay for any extra costs that might come up. Maybe the quote's going to be a little bit higher than you think. Just be prepared. Keep that in mind, that maybe save an extra $1,000 over what you think it's going to cost. That's probably a safe bet. Another thing is to note is that quoting is time consuming for us, and most of the time we're not charging for that. We're not getting paid to do our research for your character. That's where selecting your first in advance also comes in handy. So it does take us a lot of time, and I know a lot of makers do get hundreds of submissions for quotes, and they got to sit there and go through them one at a time. It took me a long time to do 30 of them, so as a result, you get makers raising their prices, because if you get too many applications, maybe you're not charging enough, that kind of thing. Don't haggle. That's also important. It's one thing to think, oh, this maker is charging too much for what I think their work is worth. You don't have to say that to them. Just say, kindly decline. Don't try to barter with them. Don't say, well, I think your suit is only worth this much. This is what I'm willing to pay. Don't do that. I know it can be tempting to try to barter it down and get a lower price. just move on to the next artist. If you have a budget, just keep searching. You don't need to fight about it, you know? It does happen. Let's see. Yeah, pricing and fursuit quality. I don't know if anyone's seen the auction that happened recently this year where a fursuit sold for $50,000. It was Zuri Studios, I think. So that's like obviously way out of the range of where fursuit pricing is now. But fursuit pricing is going up, standards are going up. But I think it's important, as with like your expectations of like what you require to be in your suit, to keep in mind that not everyone does everything. Lining is not standard. Lining a zipper is not standard. I do it because it looks pretty. Some makers do things differently than others. Some makers look more professional than others, or they have a more professional looking logo. Some makers don't have websites, some do. There's no standards for fursuit making, and the price may not necessarily reflect the amount of extras that you receive, for example. But it's up to you to determine whether or not you want your pricing to include all of those extra luxuries that in the end are optional for your suit. For example, headlining has become pretty standard, but some makers still don't do it and won't do it, and some people think that everyone should be doing it, and that every head needs to be lined, and that it's lower quality if it's not lined, which is not true necessarily. It's a luxury feature. You should still be wearing a balaclava under your head anyway. Lining was not a standard thing in the past, and for some makers it still isn't a standard. As some makers it's just too finicky to do. I know some have like issues with their hands where they can't do certain details because it's difficult for them. And in the end, I don't think that's necessarily reflective of the price that the artist is charging. Pricing is more related to demand. So if the artist has a high demand, but their fursuits have more like a crafty vibe, a homemade vibe, then the price is a reflection of the demand for those costumes and not necessarily what you receive. So you need to determine, like I said before, what you want to be included and what you need to be included. If you need your head to be lined, you have to find an artist that will line your head. Don't just assume that you're going to get it because you're paying a higher price. Let's see.
You have like 8 minutes.
I have 8 minutes? Oh no.
So I don't know if you want to do Q&A.
I'll just quickly run through getting accepted because my notes are very small for that. If you get accepted for your commission, be ready to pay, be responsive, be checking your email. We're not banked as well, so if you are on a payment plan, you can't pay us $500 and then go, oh, well, I had to take my cat to the vet. Can you please give me back the $500 and I'll pay you back in a month? We can't really do that kind of thing. You can't do that if you're paying for a car. You can't do that if you paid for a fridge or something and you're on a payment plan. That kind of happens a lot, but this is our livelihood, and most of the time we're already buying materials with that money that you've given us. So if you don't have a savings of some kind for life incidentals, then you're not ready to commission a suit yet. You shouldn't expect to get a refund from any maker in that case. That's why I think it's best to have the full amount of your suit saved up in advance before you commission the maker. So you can pay it all in one go, and you don't have to worry about it. Emergencies will not affect you at all. After it's being accepted as well, you can take a look at your place in the queue, make sure that the maker adds you, keeps you updated. You can see who's in front of you. Most makers use a website called Trello, and you can subscribe to their Trello and see all of the changes and updates that they're making. They're usually categorized into what they're working on, who's waiting, who's paying. It's a really great tool. I would say even maybe look for a maker who does use Trello specifically because it's such an easy way to keep up, and it's very easy for makers to use. Some don't, some do, but that's what I would recommend. Here's my Trello, so you can see all the projects that are going on, things that are being paid for, things we're working on, side projects, which I don't work on during regular hours, all that stuff. And then just wait patiently. Hopefully your maker is good about keeping you updated. I have like a private Telegram chat for all of my clients, and I just post my works in progress every single day. I just post, here I made a nose, here I put an ear, here I did this. Like as small as it is, you can see that I'm making progress. And I think that more makers should do that. Because a lot of us are like a bit afraid that if you're not showing major progress, that people will not want to be, will not be interested in seeing, oh, you finished carving this phone base, you finished the foot, whatever. But you know, any amount of progress is good progress. And it's very important for us to keep you updated. So, you know, don't necessarily bother your maker every single day, but try to keep up with where they're posting and what they're posting, and hopefully they'll keep you updated too. After you get your suit, which hopefully you do, check the fit right away. See if there's anything that needs fixing, and tell your maker. That's like a big problem that we have to deal with is people will feel a little bit of like worried. They won't want to talk to you. If something's wrong with your suit, tell your maker. We're willing to fix it. You might have to send the suit back, but we will fix it. It's difficult to create something that fits perfectly off of a duct tape copy of yourself. Sometimes it might not stuff correctly, or maybe you've gained a little bit of weight, maybe you've lost weight. I have one customer who had a baby, is going to have a baby. You know, things might change. So if anything needs adjusting, you know, just let us know. I had an issue actually where the seams in all of our bodysuits kept popping, like right here, because we had string on the armpits, which we've now fixed. But a lot of my clients were experiencing it, but they were like, oh, I didn't want to bother you with it. You know, I didn't want to bug you about it. I didn't want to have to, like, you know, throw off your schedule to fix it. But it was happening to all of them. And I was like, oh, well, now that I know, I can change the pattern and fix that, which I did do. So that's really important, because if your maker has a consistent issue that they need to fix, it's important for them to know that it's there. So don't be afraid to let your maker know if something doesn't quite fit or doesn't fit. And let's see. I think that's basically it. I did want to say one last thing about YouTube reviews, because those are kind of popular right now, to get your suit and unbox it and review it. A lot of people criticize like using hot glue in certain parts of the head, or that the fur might not be glued down on every single surface of the head, but like then your head would be really solid. So, you know, don't take those reviews as like this is how a fursuit should be made. All paws should be lined, like that kind of thing. It's all about your preference and what you want to be in your suit. If you are happy with your suit and you are happy with your maker, that's the most important thing. And you shouldn't let anyone tell you that your suit is low quality, or, oh, well, you could have gotten this if you commissioned this maker. You commissioned the maker that you wanted because you wanted a suit that you wanted. Like that's it. As long as you like it, that's all that matters. So that's my panel about how to commission a fursuit. I hope that you learned something. I don't think there's anything in this room after, so we can do Q&A if anyone wants to hang around and ask questions. You can also contact me online. It's Kemonokapi.com is my website. You can find me on Twitter as FeathersOkapi. And I answer DMs and questions all the time related to commissions and construction and everything like that. So if you don't want to stay and ask questions, you can find me there on the internet. And if there's any questions now, I'm happy to answer them. Yep.
Yeah, it is more helpful to ask for a quote on variants of your character. Like you can say, there's this marking or whatever that is optional. I'm not sure how much I'm willing to pay for it, or like it's much more expensive.
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is, for example, say you have a very complicated back marking, like maybe some kind of tattoo. You can submit your image as it is on your character, and then you can come up with a simplified version as well and say, here's another option if this is too complicated, or if you think this will be beyond my price range. And you can provide your maker with a budget as well. You can say, you know, I'm looking to spend from here to here. Would this marking be too complex? And if they say, yes, I can do that, or no, I can't fit that within your person, you can say, thank you for your time, and move on to the next one. It depends how important that marking is to you. If you 100% have to have it, you'll just have to pay more for it in the end.
Yeah, quick comment there. So one thing, so I have a character that I've been trying to find the right maker for 3 years. It's a very complex character. I have had multiple makers tell me they won't make a simplified version, even if I send them a simplified art, because their view is it doesn't match the character. And I've had others tell me, no, this is too complex for me, I don't do it. And I've had others say, yes, I will do it, here's what it will cost, and it was an astronomical fee.
Yep. Any other questions in general, or anything like that?
So how do you help people deal with the fact that you may not want to make their suit that they think they want you to make?
In that case, if there's something like, even if your budget is very high, if you don't really want to make it, I don't feel like I'll do it justice, because, you know, I want to make things that I want to make, obviously. And if I don't think it's a good fit, that's what I'll say, I don't think that your character is a good fit for me, and maybe I'll recommend other suit makers that I think might be. Or, you know, we have like a group chat where we talk, and, you know, we might post the character and say, hey, can I refer this person to any of you? Is this a character that you'd be interested in making? And that's how I know I can refer you to a maker who will be willing to converse with you about that. So a lot of us will do that. We like to get each other characters that we want to make. Yep.
How much more money would a more realistic suit design cost compared to a more 2D suit design?
That depends entirely on the maker that you choose again. Some realistic makers, that's all they do, and they can do it very well, very quickly. They love doing it, and maybe that realistic maker's price range might be the same as a toonie maker. So really, it can vary wildly across the board between all styles. So it really comes down to the individual. For me, making a realistic head seems impossible. I don't know how to airbrush anything. It'd be very difficult for me. But for another maker, they might be like, yeah, that's all I want to make. I love making that. I don't have to charge as much as someone else because I'm more experienced and I can do it quicker. You really never know. It's just wild across the board, honestly. So you gotta look maker to maker, figure out what they're charging, and see if it fits in your budget.
I have a price comparison. Yours is like the realistic maker I would recommend. Right now, I commissioned a realistic head and got scammed once, and finally got another head after 3 years, and they're kind of sketchy, so I would only recommend a limited number of people. But even those, like just a head, they cost different, even though one might be more work, or
Yeah.
who knows.
Yeah, so my base price for a head that she highlighted there is $2,200 for just the head. But this is the realistic maker, yeah?
Yeah.
Their price range is $1,600 to $1,800. And for me, that's an issue of demand. I don't have enough slots to fulfill everyone's request. So in exchange, I raise my prices so I have less inquiry. So it's easier for me to manage my time and my schedule. Yeah, and I make kimono suits. I don't make realistic suits. So just to clarify. Yeah. Oh, Melissa Medicine. Yeah, her stuff's great. If you want realistic, yes. Oh.
But you saw yours.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously the realistic ones look a bit more involved, but, you know, pricing is down to the individual artist, what they want to charge, and what their cost of living is, et cetera, et cetera. So, you gotta look around. Anything else? Or are we good? I think we're a little bit over time now, but, yeah. Here's my dudes. I love those guys. Yeah, so thank you for coming. I hope that I didn't just babble on endlessly. I know it's a lot. I could make whole panels about every individual point I talked about, I feel. But I try to condense it as much as possible. So if you have any questions later, you can message me online. I'm always on there. Thank you for coming.